And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, the main feature here of the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. We've got all types of things going on. We've got filaments. We've got new sunspots. We've got coronal holes. We've got a very weak solar wind. And plenty more to cover. Additional flooding happening. And, of course, the most detailed imagery you'll find anywhere on the internet. Anywhere in the world, the most detailed imagery you'll find of the closest star. Thanks for stargazing with us. So again, we've got new sunspots rising here. Likelihood of solar flares is going way up as this group forms and this group rises. Here's your colorized magnetogram. That's the data from yesterday and today. Today being Thursday, August 25th. We've also got the 171 angstroms plus colorized magnetogram imagery. Also a minor coronal mass ejection happening now. And we'll get to all of that first. We're inviting you all to join us on Twitter. Some fascinating conversations over there thanks to our new followers over on Twitter. If you want to support the channel via a subscription service, become a member of the Smash team at the gold or silver level. We host all of our videos there. For some reason, the thumbnail not showing up. We host all of our videos there. Just click on posts. Again, thanks to our gold and silver Smash team level members. There's even a gold up annual paid subscription, which is the best value for your dollars. We're also regular streamers to Twitch, twitch.tv/SmashoMash. You want to improve your health? Try AssureMed membership. It's not insurance. It's just an association membership to the American Better Health Organization. And while it does open you up to the possibility of purchasing some insurance, the membership itself includes all kinds of features like doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, discounts on dental services, discounts on vision services, discounts on vitamins, etc. It's almost like AAA for the human body. Visit the link below this video or perhaps on the homepage at smashomash.com. Support the channel with links. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. There's the homepage. We were enticed to create our own web ring as a result of pathetic censorship on Facebook back in 2018. How's their stock been doing since? Yeah. We recently posted some stock charts of some big tech organizations on the Twitter page. Google, Facebook, Apple, and Twitter not looking so ripe over the past year. In 2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade into the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash team. Press like, press subscribe, press share, tell your friends and foes about the channel. It's only the most comprehensive space weather video in the world. The past, about 5 years, pushing 6 years. About 5.5 years at the moment. And thanks to all of our subscribers over on YouTube. We've recently made some changes to the YouTube homepage. And I didn't intentionally click on that. Today's featured product is on our Redbubble shop. You can find links to that as well on the homepage, as well as below this video. This is the products offered in order of best selling. Yeah, facts, folks. Facts. By the way, I and the channel are utterly apolitical. We're interested in things that work, pragmatic, facts, things like science. I'm a fanatic for basically one thing, the truth. Today's featured product is the Fauci fraud products. Yes. Now, Fauci clearly committed fraud back in December of 2020 when he told the New York Times, the quote that we featured on the products. Maybe pick up a Fauci fraud bath mat if you'd like to put your feet on the face of fraud. The face of evil, Dr. Fauci. Yes. He's retiring to try and get out of the way of accountability, and he probably will, because in a banana republic, there are two justice systems and no accountability for corporatist frauds. He said, when polls take When polls said only half of Americans would take a vaccine, I was saying herd immunity would take 70 to 75%. Then when newest surveys said 60% or more would take it, I thought I could nudge this up a bit, so I went to 80-85. Let's get back to our regularly scheduled coverage. And while volcanoes are not space weather, our viewers appreciate the coverage. Check it out, Subanose Jima. Starting out our list here. Exploded, produced a 4,000-foot ash plume. Ibu exploded, produced a 6,000-foot ash plume. And now Pavlov on the list. On the Alaskan Peninsula, Pavlov there. 10,000-foot volcanic ash plume from Pavlov. It's a flight level 100. Nevado del Ruiz in Colombia. No volcanic ash observed. Don't assume that it's not erupting and decide to pole vault the caldera. That could be unhealthful. Heading down to Ecuador, we see the two usual suspects, Sangay and Revenador. Intense activity at Sangay as it's exploding and producing a 23,000-foot ash plume. Also Strombolian eruptions happening there, and a near-constant glow. Revenador exploding, flight level 170. And down in Peru, Sabancaya continues to explode, flight level 240. It's a 24,000-foot ash plume from Sabancaya. Let's look at global seismicity briefly. Moderate levels of activity here. No 6 magnitude earthquakes to report. A little swarm there around Alaska. Drop us a line if you felt any of those quakes in the comments section. I think the largest quake of the past 24 was this 5.4 at Chile. That was at extreme depth there, over 100 kilometers estimated depth. Vanuatu had a 5.2. The Kuril Islands there, south of Kamchatka, had a 5.1. Indonesia had a 5.0. So pretty calm here, seismically speaking. Most earthquakes around the Pacific Rim. The Ring of Fire. Speaking of rings of fire, here's the 304 angstrom imagery. 304 angstroms is ionized helium. That's the last approximately 24 hours of the closest star. Very well-defined coronal hole down here. Again, new sunspots have formed. Likelihood of solar flares has gone up, and solar flaring has gone up. Radio flux has gone up as well. It's now at 108 solar flux units. There's the one-year chart of that. The radio flux is the black line. The red line below it is the sunspot number. Space Weather Enthusiast Dashboard not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest. There's not a lot going on. We were expecting a high-speed coronal hole wind stream, which either is late in its arrival or is missing the Earth entirely. Next, Earth geomagnetic moment from space. FYI, Earth's magnetosphere is not evaporating, and the likelihood of Earth's pole flipping is incredibly low. It's almost a 0% chance, and the geologic record tells us why it's so unlikely. That's the last 4 hours of Earth's magnetic moment from space. It's a very low-pressure environment at the moment. And keep in mind, folks, the space weather modeling framework is information that you can download. So the geospace magnetosphere movies and ground magnetic perturbations, they're all based on the space weather modeling framework. If you want to read more about that, there's a link at the bottom of that page. You click Details, you click Space Weather Modeling Framework, and you can get all the information about it. It's derived from all kinds of things like radiation belt models, inner magnetosphere models, the solar wind, the magnetometers, and so on. At the bottom of all those pages, there's a Details tab. If you click that, there's a link to the Space Weather Modeling Framework. It's all courtesy of University of Michigan. So here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. Keep in mind, folks, if we have erroneous solar wind data, we're going to have erroneous magnetic models, because these are all indeed models. Anyway, this is the last 4 hours of Earth's likely magnetic moment from the ground. Things are quite geomagnetically calm at the moment. KP index is at 2, actually. KP2, planetary K-index, measurement of global geomagnetism. And the real-time solar wind having some suspect-looking data here. So you're seeing this sudden drop-off where we're getting down to 0.26 protons per cubic centimeter. That's a little bit suspect. I'm seeing some quite significant variations here in the data showing up, suspected errors, and so on. Current solar wind velocity looks like it could be legit there at just under 400 kilometers per second. You can see the plasma temperature dropping off here. So perhaps some cosmic ray strikes on the aperture or something like that, but for whatever reason, some bad looking data there. But solar wind speed looks like it's only 390 kilometers per second. I would say the solar wind density is probably like 4 protons per cubic centimeter. As we do see a rather legit signal around here about 12 hours ago. Next, moving into magnetic data. The GOES magnetometers here pretty smooth over the past 24 hours. And for you new viewers, the N's and M's represent the noon and midnight local time for the satellite. They are geosynchronous satellites in a near equatorial orbit. And thanks for leaving comments, Smash Host staff and Tin Man 1057. Good morning to you as well. Cheers. Today we're drinking Peruvian medium roast organic ground. And let's get into the Gong 2 data. Here's our top view ecliptic plane field plot, which for some reason needed to be refreshed. And you can see the the north solar polar field here in green. Still mostly located at the pole. And the south solar polar field here actually kind of hanging around the South Pole, indicating that we've got a long time until solar maximum. North heliospheric current sheet is accelerating this way at the moment. But at the moment, Earth is in a South Pole current sheet shown there in red. So here's our line of sight field plot, which also needs to be refreshed because reasons. It shows the sun's B field in blue. And the solar magnetogram, of course, new sunspots showing up here. So some changes likely happening in the magnetic plots here. Here's the line of sight coronal hole plot. And this very well-defined coronal hole down here in the southeastern limb is indeed South Pole oriented. And most of the southern solar polar field here pointed right at the Earth in the last few days. We've got some SDO imagery here in 211 angstroms. Well-defined coronal hole there. And don't be surprised to still see some effects of this coronal hole here. We're not seeing a high-speed wind stream or anything from that yet, but it is quite equatorial there. So don't be surprised to see some upticks in the solar wind density followed by a downtick and an uptick in the solar wind speed. Let's move to sunspots. And we've got more named groups about to happen here. So this group down here needs a name. This will be known as 3088, I think. And then we've got 3089 up here and 3090 just risen over here. So not exactly sure which order those will be named in, but we'll have some more named sunspot groups. We'll have like 6 named sunspot groups at the end of the day today. We've got some spectacular imagery from SDO here. This is the continuum. We're also going to zoom in and show the magnetogram. So here's the zoom in on the continuum. Again, some new sunspots forming and some new sunspots rising. Here's the magnetogram, and all of these HelioViewer movies are 24-hour. It's typically what we show daily when we show our HelioViewer.org movies. It's from about 9:30 Universal Time. That sunspot mostly stable over the past 24 hours. We'll go around the rim here. This one interesting because the different fields are spreading apart. Keep in mind, folks, sunspots migrate toward the equator. Some great evolution there of that sunspot. Now headed down to the southeastern limb. And these new sunspots rising. Don't be surprised to see a major flare from this group, as it is so close to the limb. And last but not least, the northeastern portion. And that sunspot is now beta gamma class as well, so likelihood of major flares has gone way up just in the past 24 hours. And indeed, flaring has increased. Let's take a look. So we just had a C-class flare here. While we did show prep, it was about a C3.6 magnitude flare. No relativistic particles here showing up on the GOES proton flux. And even going back a week, no noteworthy relativistic particles. And let's see where those X-rays were coming from. And indeed, they were coming from this new group right here. And once again, as you can see, when sunspots are closer to the limb, they are more likely to produce major flares, raising the possibility that solar flares are anisotropic, meaning their intensity depends on your viewing angle. And we've brought up a star chart as we do most days. This is what's going on over the Lehigh Valley. The sun just rising here at the moment. We've also got Venus, the moon, Mars, and Jupiter. It's been a great few months here of morning planetary viewing. The moon and Venus close together out there. And let's do a solar system forecast. By the way, for all you alarmists out there, let me just say, from the bottom of the heart at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, that the planets are not going to kill you, and neither is the sun. Humans might kill you, and the sun might shut down the power grid, but the sun's not going to kill you. Here's your solar system forecast. Oh, and by the way, Jupiter and Saturn aren't going to kill you either. Here's where things will be in a week. We'll have a crescent waxing, and we're approaching a new moon in just a day or two. Let's look at some coronagraphs. There was some minor coronal mass ejection activity. I don't think anything earthly directed. And some likely cosmic ray strikes on the aperture there. You can see some interference happening. And this is today's data, and we've got a very limited amount of data from today. Let's move to the view from Stereo A and the Soho-Lasco C3, located here at Lagrange 1. Stereo A located at Lagrange 5. And we've paused this here because there's a CME on the far side of the sun. And a bunch of missing data there. It's going from 1953 to 753. That's like 11 hours of missing data there. 12 hours of missing data there. And in any case, we don't see any earthly directed CMEs at the moment. Let's see what we can see here as far as filaments. This is the El Teide, Spain ground-based solar observatory. Let's see if any filament eruptions have been going on. And there may have been a CME from down here. There is a large filament down here hanging out. We'll take a look at the GOES 16 here in a moment. A lot of filaments here in the northwest as well. So here's the GOES 16 SUVI, and we should have that flare. Not sure. I don't see a CME. So that would probably show up considering how recently that flare has happened. And let's switch to the composite image that we made today. This is 335 plus 171 angstroms. That's the last 24 hours. And this is where it's time to pause for station identification. This is the Smash News Network least busted name in news. We're moving into the bonus features segment, where we look at things like satellite charging hazards. We've got some surface and some internal charging hazards at the moment. We are expecting the electron flux to wane a little bit here. At the moment, some internal charging over Africa, the Central Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, and Oceania. Surface charging here over Mexico and the Central Pacific. Electron flux here, again, we're expecting this to drop. There's the majority of the electron storm. We reached quite high levels in the past week. There's the NOAA forecast for the electron flux. And there is the one-year chart to put all of that in context. We'll look at the F ionosphere layer, the vibrational frequency of the bridge between Earth and space. And the F layer located at about 300 kilometers of altitude. You're looking at vibrational frequency there, megahertz. Here's the anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. As we approach the most geomagnetically active month of the year, September, the month in which the Carrington event occurred. And the reason that things are more active around the equinoxes, we think, is because of the angle of attack. The Earth's magnetosphere is just more susceptible. It's like a perpendicular strike on the magnetosphere versus a glancing blow on the magnetosphere around the solstices. Anyway, there's 10:30 universal time. We've also got the total electron content forecast showing you the most likely places for GPS errors. That's the free electrons from your GPS handset all the way up to about 12,500 miles, about 12,500 miles of altitude. The free electrons in that entire airspace. And things looking a little bit less organized here. There's a diagram to show you what we're talking about. Again, your GPS satellite's at about 12,500 miles of altitude. Feel free to pause the video there. Distances shown to these objects and portions of the magnetosphere in miles. Latest intensity gram. Again, lots of new named sunspot groups here. I have no reason to count them. They are magnetically complex, as you can see from the magnetogram. Likelihood of solar flares much higher than it was yesterday. Let's bring up one more composite series of images from SDO. This is 2 species of ionized iron and 1 of ionized helium. That data is from yesterday and today so far. And now it's time to move to the realm of meteorology. We'll start things out here in the meteorology segment looking at ocean currents and sea surface temperature anomaly. To show you that indeed the Gulf Stream still exists. Did Europe experience a year without a summer? Well, it's quite obvious that it didn't. There's rampant droughts going on across Europe. Rivers are drying up. It's far from a year without a summer. In fact, it's been very hot. And indeed the Gulf Stream continuing on. Some hot water there in the North Atlantic, as you can see. Very large sea surface temperature anomalies happening there. What are we at here? 6 degrees Fahrenheit above normal. 12.3 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in that area. And also some anomalously cold water there around Iceland, to the west of Greenland, and here in between Portugal, stretching down into the North Atlantic. I guess we'll show the full global view if it's not too controversial. Some very cold water here on the coast of whatever country that might be. I have no idea. That's 8 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. There's the Pacific Ocean. Hot water in the north, cold water in the equatorial, and hot water in the south. There's the Indian Ocean. And let's get to our regularly scheduled meteorology segment. Surface winds and jet streams. There are the jet streams of Oceania and the Far East. Here are the surface winds. Surface winds of the Americas. Jet streams of the Americas. Jet streams of the central world. A bit of backward jet stream action here once again over the Indian Ocean and North Africa. And here are the surface winds. Shout out to our viewers from all around the planet. Next, our weather.gov map and some more flooding here. These bright green areas, those are flood warnings. Please heed the warnings. Don't be in flood waters. It makes for a bad time. Head to higher ground. If your county's lit on weather.gov, click your county, figure out what your warning is, and get out of the way of incoming walls of water. Let's do a forecast here. It wasn't ready when we did show prep. So here's your total accumulated precipitation forecast. Some heavy rains coming to Florida as well. We're going to show the Euro model of that as well in a moment. That's the GFS 72-hour total accumulated precipitation forecast. Precipitation totals shown here in inches. And we show 72-hour forecasts on the channel instead of alarmist 3-week idiotic forecasts that are about as accurate as predictions that we're going to have a grand solar minimum. Heaviest rains there showing up in portions of Florida there. It looks like over 4 inches of rain forecasted for some isolated areas. So here's this is the European model. And let's actually zoom in here. So this is the European model for rain accumulation for the next 3 days. And I'll just show you how different the GFS and Euro models are. So there's the Euro model. There's the GFS model. Euro model, GFS model. And let's continue on to our NASA Goes Lightning Mapper. Man, oh man, my voice is shattered. And here is your real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org. And we do have some terrestrial strikes north of Omaha. So in between Omaha and Sioux City there, we've got some active cells. Hey, Hooper. There's thunder rolling in. And if you're in Omaha, take some video of those cloud tops. You may see some sprites up there above those severe thunderstorms. Got some lightning, and it looks like Montana there as well. Anyway, that's your real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org. And here's your U.S. Doppler radar map. We're going to focus on the lower 48. Here's the shortwave radiation satellite. It'll show clouds and fog. And if you think this is a chemtrail, I would inform you that the resolution on this map is 1 kilometer if you zoom all the way in. If you've ever seen a 1 kilometer contrail, leave us a comment. Don't be an idiot. Chemtrails are not a thing. I don't care what Dane Wigington says. There's your water vapor map. We've got this high pressure zone. A bunch of dry mass of air hanging out over the center of the country and over part of the mid-Atlantic region. That's a high pressure. Remember, folks, dry air is more massive than moist air at a given temperature and pressure. Anyway, here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar, which is animated some days and some days not, because reasons. Here's your shortwave radiation satellite showing clouds and fog. And there is your water vapor map. That should clarify things. And thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And may that solar wind be at your back.